Federal government to immortalize first civilian president of Nigeria as President Buhari pays condolence visit to Sokoto.
Federal government will in due course institute a suitable memorial to the late former president. May his soul rest in peace.
Baga attack. Chief of Defense Staff leads service chiefs, tasks commanders to do more.
Federal government expresses dissatisfaction over performance of power distribution companies, evolves measures to change the narrative.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we will conclude a review of major issues discussed on the program in the outgoing year.
Now, in the last two editions of Good Morning Nigeria, we reviewed some of the issues we discussed in the outgoing year, which is ending today. Kieran?
Yes, and today being the last day of the year, we are concluding our review in line with the tradition of NTA's flagship program, Good Morning Nigeria.
And in this edition, we shall bring you some interesting episodes which include administration of justice in Nigeria, combating dangers of fake news, 70 years of university education in Nigeria, population explosion, and return to parliamentary system of government.
And others are see and buy, invasion of the Senate and anti-corruption war 3 years on. These are meant to refresh the memories of our viewers as we sojourn into a new year 2019, which promises to be eventful in view of the general elections scheduled to begin in February.
And this is Good Morning Nigeria, the first edition for the week and the last for the year 2018. I am Ruth Aguwele. Thank you so much for joining us on Good Morning Nigeria, which is coming to you live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority, the NTA.
And I am Kirian Umayo, joining Ruth in welcoming you to the last edition of the program for 2018. We shall also bring you our usual companion segments, which include newspaper review, business, sports, and foreign news. But first, let's take morning news with Ifeoma Ojinta. Ifeoma Ojinta, it's good to see you on this platform. Good morning and welcome.
Good to see you too, Ruth. Good morning, Kirian and Ruth, and good morning, Nigeria. Here is the news. The federal government has resolved to institute a befitting memorial in honor of the first civilian president of Nigeria, late Alhaji Shehu Shagari. President Muhammadu Buhari announced this during a condolence visit to the Sokoto family house of the late president at the seat of the Caliphate.
Late Alhaji Shehu Shagari was a landmark figure, being virtually our last link to the post-independence government of Alhaji Abubakar Tafawa Balewa and the first elected executive president of Nigeria. Please convey to his immediate family, the government and people of Sokoto State, my heartfelt condolences on the passing away of this great statesman. The federal government will in due course institute a suitable memorial to the late former president. May his soul rest in peace. Yours sincerely, Muhammadu Buhari.
And in honor of the late former Nigerian president, Alhaji Shehu Shagari, President Muhammadu Buhari directed that flags should fly at half-mast for 3 days.
As you give him that honor, I appreciate it. It's the right thing to honor such a dynamic personality.
Really, the man, he deserves the respect. If the order that all our flags should be down, he deserves the respect. As a former president, and the man really did well when he was a president.
Following attacks by Boko Haram terrorists in 2 communities in Borno State, the Chief of Defense Staff, General Abayomi Olonishakin, has visited the state and held meeting with service chiefs to assess the situation. General Olonishakin, who commended the troops, tasked the commanders to do more.
Commended the doggedness of our troops for what they have been doing, especially for rising up to the occasion of all this madness by these Boko Haram terrorists, by dealing decisively with them.
Operation Lafia Dole says it has observed that some individuals with likely sinister motives within and outside Borno State are trying to create panic and unnecessary humanitarian problems for undisclosed reasons. A statement by the Deputy Director, Public Relations, Theatre Command of Operation Lafia Dole, Colonel Onyema Nwachukwu, indicates that these people are plotting to instigate the inhabitants of Bama, Dikwa and Mongono communities to abandon their communities and relocate to internally displaced persons camps for undisclosed reasons. It urges inhabitants of these towns and the general public to discountenance such calls and remain calm. The statement says Theatre Command Operation Lafia Dole and other security agencies will shed more light on the issue in a Security Council meeting with the Borno State government scheduled to hold today. Meanwhile, the Air Task Force of Operation Dira Mikiya has successfully neutralized armed bandits' hideout at a compound west of Samari in Birni Magaji local government area of Zamfara State. The Nigerian Air Force, in a statement, said the attack, which was conducted at dawn on the 28th of December 2018, following intelligence reports, indicates that the compound was being used for the armed bandits as a camp from where they launch attacks against innocent civilians. It adds that the Air Task Force, working in concert with surface forces and other security agencies, will continue to conduct reconnaissance, air and interdiction missions with a view to restoring normalcy to the affected states in the northwest. Apparently dissatisfied with their performance, the federal government is contemplating measures to make power distribution companies live up to their responsibility of efficient distribution of power. Minister of State One for Power, Works and Housing, Mustafa Baba Shehuri, gave the hint when he visited 2 transmission substations in Port Harcourt region of the South Zone.
The whole essence of the privatization is to strengthen the system. But what is happening now is the generation capacity has improved, transmission has improved. They are not taking, power from the transmission for the PR of they said losses. And these excuses, are not acceptable.
The Corps Marshal of the Federal Road Safety Corps, Boboye Oyeyemi, has urged members of the motoring public to remain cautious in their celebration of the New Year. In a statement by BC Kazim, Corps Public Education Officer, FRSC, Oyeyemi described as satisfactory the stability recorded on the nation's highways during the Christmas celebration, saying that collective fit must be sustained. The Corps Marshal stated that with the return journey of people after the celebrations, an expected rise in traffic movement in the new year occasioned by increased political activities towards the 2019 general elections in the country, FRSC personnel will remain on guard to prevent all forms of disobedience to traffic rules and regulations, as well as road mishaps. And that's the news for now. Good Morning Nigeria continues with Ruth and Kirian after this break.
Unemployment, notably youth unemployment, features strongly in our party's manifesto. We intend to attack the problem promptly through revival of agriculture.
The 30K is going a long way. Actually, I bought an acre of land for 60K like 2012, and Presently, I have a cassava farm and a yam farm.
Reorganized, trained, and fully equipped, we are the new improved Nigeria Police Force. We fight crime. We bust syndicates. Whatever the crime, wherever the hideout, the Nigeria Police Force will get you busted. Stop kidnapping, armed robbery, murder, pipeline vandalism, and other criminal activities. Be productive. Be security conscious. Join the police force to secure your life and property. This message is from the Nigeria Police Force Public Relations Department.
Cadbury Hot Chocolate 3-in-1. A delicious combination of rich cocoa and wholesome goodness of milk. Just add hot water to get an instant chocolatey treat that delights your senses. Cadbury Hot Chocolate 3-in-1. Just add hot water.
Politics, democratically, affords a level playing field for everyone who carries the will and courage to lead a people in the right direction.
I wish to call on women to go and spread the good news and accomplishment of the present administration.
Women inevitably are the right source to pave this path that can bring good governance, structural stability, rapid economic growth, and basic human rights to all its citizenry. There is no better time than now to experience their prowess in this era, when women all over the world are showing that they have the right tools to build a nation. The Buhari-led administration and APC have aligned with its purpose to involve women with the right vision. The idea is not just for participation, but inclusive participation.
We can exert more power than we would have individually in garnering the majority of registered women and youth voters to vote for the Buhari-Osinbajo team come 2019.
This is what change is all about. This is the vision of the All Progressives Congress. This is for a new Nigeria.
You in the air-conditioned office with the itchy throat. Strepsils. Girl in the spotlight with the raspy throat. Strepsils. You in the pollution. It's you. Dry throat. Strepsils. Hello in the downpour with the scratchy throat. Take Strepsils. Strepsils, with its soothing medicinal ingredients, will heal the harm done to your throat from external factors. Strepsils! Strepsils! Strepsils, for a dry, itchy, raspy, scratchy throat. 3G is great, 4G is better. You don't know what you're missing till you experience it. Buy an Airtel SIM to enjoy double data on Nigeria's widest 4G network. Airtel, the smartphone network.
Madam. Brought us as usual.
As usual. You have no problem.
For the three put
you are welcome, sir.
As usual, yeah.
Welcome. You take that one. Yeah, take that one. You don't understand? We want Nigerian homegrown rice. Finish. You don't have? You don't have?
Join the rice revolution today.
No other rice that tastes like Nigerian rice.
Are you sorry? That's the Nigerian rice we are talking about.
Chocolate made in Nigerian rice. Healthy food.
I'm going to bring Mrs. Mobo to come to chocolate rice of made in Nigeria here. And see how it are made.
Correct.
And how they are cook it.
Correct.
Homegrown rice are good for your health. It boosts our economy and give employment to our people.
This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Welcome back, and now to business news. 15 states receive federal government disbursement of about $40 million under the Youth Employment and Social Support Program. Chimobi Walter Naji tells us more on business news.
A total of $40 million has been disbursed by the federal government to about 15 states under the Youth Empowerment and Social Support Program. The national coordinator of the federal government's Youth Employment and Social Support Operations, Mrs. Hajara Sani, who made this known in Abuja, said the $40 million was disbursed out of the $400 million that was set aside by the World Bank for the program. She noted that YESO is a program aimed at strengthening the state-level social safety net systems and reducing the vulnerability of poor youth and women through increased access to work opportunities and promoting human capital development. The program was introduced in 2013 by the World Bank in collaboration with the federal government to support federal and state governments' efforts to improve the lives of the poor and vulnerable in the society. So far, the government is implementing the program to assist the poor and vulnerable in 15 states across the federation: Bauchi, Cross River, Ekiti, Kogi, Kwara, Adamawa and Borno State, among others. In other stories, the Central Bank of Nigeria says Manufacturing Purchasing Managers Index (PMI) stood at 61.1 index points in December, indicating an expansion in the manufacturing sector for the 21st consecutive month. The index grew at a faster rate when compared to the index in the previous months. 13 of the 14 subsectors survey reported growth in the review month, which include transportation equipment, furniture and related products, printing and related support activities, textile, apparel, leather and footwear, plastics and rubber products, among others. However, on the downside, the primary metals subsector recorded decline in the review period. Also, the composite PMI for the non-manufacturing sector stood at 62.3 points in December 2018, indicating expansion in the non-manufacturing PMI for the 20th consecutive month. On non-manufacturing, the PMI report states that the index grew at a faster rate when compared to that in November 2018. And that's business news. I'm Chimobi Walter Naji.
Chimobi Walter Naji there with the business news for today. And up ahead on Good Morning Nigeria is a newspaper review.
Thank you for staying with us, and our newspaper reviewer, Bayo Atoyebi, is already in the house. It's already in the house. Good morning.
Morning, Ruth.
Good to
How are you
see
today? Good to see you too. Good morning, Kilian.
Thank you.
Good morning, Nigeria.
It's the last day of 2018.
Yes. Yes, we just ran out on us.
Okay, so let's start the papers. We have the inside paper of Daily Trust, page 10. No last word from Shagari. That's what the Sun is saying. That's on page 10. Then Shagari is selfless statesman, Ajimobi. That's the Oyo State Governor. And then let's come down here now. Buhari in Sokoto promises to immortalize Shagari. Still on page 10. He was a great leader with clean heart. Former President Jonathan. That's it from page 10 of Daily Trust. Kieran, you want to take another one?
All right, before Bayo, discusses Shagari, let's go to Punch newspaper, page 10 of the Punch newspaper. And below the photograph on that page, we have Southern Middle Belt leaders ask INEC to resist rigging plans. And now, your crowd shows Buhari is undefeatable, says Ambode, that's the Lagos State governor. 500 PDP members defect to APC in Kwara State. This page actually just had political stories. But let's go to Bayo now for some analysis, especially the death of the first civilian president of Nigeria, Alhaji Shehu Shagari.
First civilian president in the Second Republic, yes. People of Sokoto State are observing today as a public holiday. It is part of the 3-day mourning for the death of former President Shehu Aliyu Usman Shagari. President Buhari, who visited the family at Sokoto on condolence, directed all flags to fly at half-mast for 3 days on Saturday. He said Alhaji Shehu Shagari represents almost the last link with the government of our founding fathers since the First Republic. He condoled Nigeria, the Shagari family, government and people of Sokoto State. The federal government, he says, will institute a suitable memorial for the former president. Former President Goodluck Jonathan, who also has visited Sokoto, described Alhaji Shehu Shagari as a nation builder who cemented relations between North and South. Former President Olusegun Obasanjo, who handed over to Alhaji Shehu Shagari in 1979, in a message said he was a man of honor, an achiever, and a united force. Former military president General Ibrahim Babangida described him as a patriot and an accomplished leader, a dependable bridge builder, a quintessential public servant who was beckoned to serve. Senate President Bukola Saraki is expected to lead a delegation to Sokoto this morning, and in his own message said the death is a national loss. Speaker Yakubu Dogara says he was a true Democrat and an icon of transparency. Governors across the nation have also been lending their voice and paying their respect. From Bayelsa to Lagos to Benue to Ekiti, they've all paid respect. On behalf of the Northern Governors Forum, Governor Kashim Shettima of Borno State said his apolitical stand 35 years after leaving office made him the nation's best statesman. Former President Shehu Shagari was rushed to the National Hospital where he died at age 83. In fact, his last public outing was in November when he hosted members of the Bariwa Old Boys Association. On that occasion, he didn't utter a word. And so for a long time, I think his aging process was that he didn't utter a word. That was why his son says he'd never left any last word when they were asking. Former Vice President Atiku Abubakar says he was a teacher, a molder of minds, and later a leader, a molder of a nation. The People's Democratic Party also has sent its own respect. It says they described him as a foremost nationalist, and his loss is a national tragedy. And he left the scene when the nation needed his wealth of experience most. The All Progressive Grand Alliance, APGA, traced his history from 1958 when he served. He was elected to the parliament and the various cabinet positions he held, and says his exit evokes public pain and national loss. The All Progressive Congress also says they've described him as a stabilizing personality, ready to lend a voice and influence for Nigeria. The APC remembers him as a fine gentleman, a patriot, an epitome of humility, a poet, a technocrat, a servant leader, and an elder statesman who's genuinely love Nigeria. So it's all encomiums for late Alhaji Shehu.
Well, as a matter of fact, Shagari was a very interesting personality. When he became the president in the Second Republic, he ran with the late Alexei Kwame. They had a very peaceful administration during that period. And Shagari will also be remembered for so many things, especially his input when he was president. Remember that he was the person that What about Ajokuta Steel Complex? That's a major contribution of Shagari to national development. But of course, I'm sure that before he really, went down age-wise, he was not happy about the fact that Ajokuta was not, really handled better than we have done so far in ensuring that that complex contributed as it was expected, when he actually conceptualized the idea of having a steel project in Nigeria.
Yes, Ajokuta was actually meant to put Nigeria on the industrial hub to help engender the industrialization, particularly after the Civil War. And incidentally, too, he was the Minister of Economic Development in charge of the 3 R's: reconciliation, rehabilitation, and reconstruction. And so there were impetuses during the Civil War. The native intelligence of our people came to the fore, particularly also even on the Biafra side, with ingenuity of manufacturing several things, contraptions, which were the avenue for our rapid development to take those initiatives, because nations find themselves opportunity to develop when they are challenged by circumstances. But unfortunately, some of them have not been there. But there he has played his part. What is left for us is to build on the legacies he has left behind.
No doubt he left a huge legacy. Let's continue with the papers. And this one is still the inside page of Daily Trust, page 21, and is on financial matters. National Assembly endorses $48 million pipe coating plant in Port Harcourt. And budget. The Center for Social Justice taxed federal government on MTEF, that's the medium-term expenditure frameworks, 203.4 billion naira recovered loot. And one more here, federal government yet to disburse $360 million out of $400 million empowerment fund. You find that inside the paper of Daily Trust, page 21. Editorial, let's go to editorial, Karen.
By 1 or 2 words before the editorial.
Yes, I wanted to draw attention to the story that is dominating the media now. Senator Shehu Sani has advised Senator Dino Melaye to submit himself to the police with his legal team. On the other hand, he has also enjoined the police to stop the siege at his residence because he described it as Gaza treatment. He said it is unhelpful for the image of the police, for the government and the nation. However, the indications are that the police say that he has questions to answer. And because they wrote letters to the clerk of the National Assembly and he refused to come up, that is why they are now sieging at his house. But apparently, before the siege on Friday, on Tuesday, he has raised an alarm that there was plans to arrest him and inject him to death. The police came to deny that there was nothing like that, and police added that if you know you have committed a crime, then come and owe up so that you can live up to it. So apparently, it was a kind of a cat and mouse kind of game. He knew what he was expecting and they know what they were about to do.
Okay, now, Bayo, let's go to the editorial for today, taken from the Punch newspaper. It's actually on page 18 of the Punch newspaper for today. Protecting Nigeria's rice revolution. Nigeria's quest for self-sufficiency in rice production has, without doubt, got off to an enthusiastic start, with some states already earning for themselves a pith of rice production. States like Kebbi, Kaduna, Kano, Jigawa, and Ebonyi have taken frontline roles in the battle to win the country off foreign rice consumption by providing much of the local alternative.
Yes, in fact, the states include Nasarawa also. But the danger that the editorial is pointing out that unless something is done about fighting importation and smuggling of rice, then the whole initiative that has been achieved will be wasted. And the editorial refers to what the situation was. And it quotes the former Minister of Trade and Industry, Olusegun Aganga, saying that Nigeria used to spend about 365 billion annually for rice, which meant about $1 billion a day to import rice. But this has been redressed. Presently, Nigeria imports only 5% of rice. 95% is produced locally. But the danger now is that still, like the custom reported some weeks ago, rice smuggled into the country are still finding their way into our markets. And the custom has impounded about 2,000 bags out of Lagos of recent. Another was impounded at Calabar, another at Port Harcourt. The same thing is being done in the northern borders around Katsina area. And the alarm that this editorial is raising is that unless something is done about that. What we had in Nigeria when we had 175 textile industries, but smuggling gradually killed them all, and today we hardly have up to about 7 of them functioning. The same thing is likely to happen to our rice revolution.
This can only thrive more, talking about, people embracing this local rice. If we also tell ourselves this is what we want, the local rice, because it's actually sweet. Yes. Let's be honest, it's very sweet.
Well, I'm sure you are giving us the benefit of your...
It depends on individuals. It cannot be sweeter than a Abakaliki rice, for instance. Because if you have tested all species of local rice in Nigeria, you don't dare compare them with anything coming from abroad. Because these are parboiled rice that have been there for 5-10 years.
And you don't know what they've used to preserve them,
But there's a danger here. If you go to buy your local rice, and they found that your local rice is expensive, but the rice that have been smuggled is cheaper, naturally people will go for the cheaper rice, and that is what undermines the evolution and the growth and the sustenance
they make it
of
cheaper
the local
so
rice.
that people can buy it.
All right, I think with time, all this success recorded in rice just started the other day. If it's been there for years, by now it would metamorphose into a different setting, where cheap local rice will be cheap. But because it's just starting, I believe that with time, right, the balance will be established.
Yes, but the danger is that to heed and block all this importation from the smuggling from the borders. That is the essence of the editorial.
All right, thank you so much, Bayo Toyebi.
Thank you.
The last for the year 2018. We hope to see you tomorrow. It's a brand new year, 2019.
Yes, indeed.
Lots of expectations.
So, Happy New Year in advance.
All right, so that's it on our newspaper review at this time. Let's go on this break. We'll be back. Stay with us.
Hate speech is not a joke. It incites genocide and crimes against humanity. Most of Africa's civil wars are caused by hate speech from one tribe against another. We don't want it here. The Nigerian government stands firm against hate speech.
Under no conditions whatsoever should we tolerate or excuse or justify hate speech or hateful conduct of any kind, especially where such is illegal.
There's no doubt that the resurgent push for separatism, as well as the rising cases of ethnic and religious disharmony, are all traceable to the growing phenomenon of hate speech.
One nation bound in freedom, peace and unity.
Nigeria, one nation, one people.
This is a public service announcement brought to you by NTA.
It is that time of the year when we appreciate all those that mean so much to us. All sponsors, our clients, government at all levels, corporate bodies, advertisers, religious bodies, civil society groups, political parties, business, and above all, you, our esteemed viewers. Together we made 2018 great. Together we shall make 2019 even greater. And that is why we say thank you. Merry Christmas and a prosperous New Year.
You in the air-conditioned office with the itchy throat. Strepsils. Girl in the spotlight with the raspy throat. Strepsils. You in the pollution. It's you. Dry throat. Strepsils. Hello in the downpour with the scratchy throat. Take Strepsils. Strepsils, with its soothing medicinal ingredients, will heal the harm done to your throat from external factors. Strepsils. Strepsils. Strepsils, for a dry, itchy, raspy, scratchy throat.
These days, people get their news and information from more media sources than ever before. Some of the news and information given are fake, unverified, doctored, and manufactured to create confusion, stir disaffection, and cause disunity. Before you believe or share any news, ask yourself, is this real? Is it from a credible source? Is it verified or verifiable? Fake news is dangerous. Whether you do it for fun or for political gains, real people can get hurt. Fake news, don't create it, don't spread it.
This is a public service announcement from NTA.
The candidates. A presidential town hall co-production between Daria Media and NTA, supported by the MacArthur Foundation. 4 presidential town halls, 4 political parties and their presidential and vice presidential candidates. 4 Wednesdays in January 2019, 9th, 16th, 23rd and 30th January, from 7 to 9 p.m. Town hall venue, Sheraton Hotel, Abuja. Moderator, Kadria Ahmed. The candidates will be broadcast live on NTA and other partner TV and radio stations, as well as streamed online on NTA and DTV.media. If you are over 18 and want to be part of the audience, apply online at daria.media or use the hashtag NGTheCandidates or participate online using the hashtag NGTheCandidates.
We thank you for being there. Now, let's begin today's edition of the review of Good Morning Nigeria with the program tagged See and Buy. Well, not for goods and services, as in the business parlance, but of votes of the electorate. What implications? Well, the excerpt of that edition, as presented by Kingsley and yours sincerely, is coming your way right now.
All the pre-election campaigns, that at the point that the voter goes in there to make his mark on the ballot box, to the extent that he's assured of, say, 3,000 or 4,000 or 5,000 naira, he or she immediately changes his or her mind and then votes the other way.
I think that first, and the response to this will be when we talk about maybe we need to rejig the regime of voter education to more political education, and political education that emphasizes the value of democracy and citizens' participation. And what does it actually mean to vote in an election? The fact that when you go vote, you're actually employing people to work for you. You're conferring on people and vesting in them power to hold trust for you and take decisions on your behalf, and they have to constantly report to you. But because that level of public education or political education is very, very low, that is why you continue to see this. And if you look at the different manifestations of the sociology of the Nigerian voter, I'm one who I actually fear the Nigerian voter. Because it is the same voter who will assure you that they are going to vote for A, and when they get to the polling booth, they change their mind. What we need to do is to discourage citizens. And there has to be a citizens' uprising against this, because it's beyond what the state can do. There has to be a citizens' uprising that even when politicians come to give you money to buy your votes, you tell them no, that we want to vote based on our conscience and based on capacity and the ability of an individual to actually deliver.
And security agencies were often compromised, according to the veterans of this process. But it would appear that to the extent that many of the loopholes have been blocked now, you can't falsify results very easily. You can't, get to do some of the things you're doing. We are now seeing the open stock exchange of see and buy. How familiar are law enforcement agencies, in particular with the police, with the electoral law, and therefore have a proper understanding of recognizing when an offense is being committed in their view? I mean, we see simple traffic offenses in the cities and elsewhere, and law enforcement agencies are just walking by. What does this mean going forward for the police, for instance?
Thank you so much. I want to start by saying that every Nigerian have the duty under the law to be law-abiding, and equally to ensure that they know what their civic responsibility is. Because it's not enough to say that the police are paid to make arrests. Like I keep on insisting that the individuals should know that it is their civic responsibility to ensure that if an offender is seen outside the purview of a police personnel, they let the police personnel know. When you dwell second to the last speaker dwell essentially on intelligence. Intelligence lies with the people. If the intelligence lies with us, we wouldn't look out for the intelligence. It's the information that is protected by people and is given to us that we work on, and it become an actionable intelligence that we rely on. But in the case of Ekiti, for all the identified offenses, that have been committed. We've made arrests, and like I told you, they are going to court. In Rivers, 7 to 8 of our personnel that were involved were tried and dismissed, and they were charged to court. And equally, ANEC official, we are the one that did the investigation and the prosecution. More than 20 of them were taken to court. Some were remanded to prison custodies, and some were eventually convicted. But the bottom line is that we are not running into any controversy or contract with any CSO. We know we are whole stakeholder in ensuring that election security is achieved in every part of the country. And that is why the arrangement put in place by police and INEC, which is Interagency Consultative Committee on Election Security, is there.
The conversation you are asking for, how will it emanate? Under which platform? How will it be arranged? The CSOs are there, and the orientation agency is also there. Now, how will this come to fruition? You know, if, of course, we have to table it as a national problem.
We're already having the conversation here.
So thank you already. We are thanking you that you are putting this on national, front burner for conversation.
Yeah.
If you shied away from this, you take the number of Nigerians who are watching this program this morning. The point to be made is that, yes, we will blame security agencies, we will blame, but the people themselves must make a conscious determination to ensure that our election is clean. And one way to do that is to say, look, if the security agencies move in on that very day, while that is going on, to arrest a culprit in the presence of, voting, you are likely going to see the political parties raise another cry that their supporters are being intimidated. Which itself raises another challenge. So it is the people, especially as far as we want security to do their job, but the people themselves must make a conscious determination. And I think Sam said something like that. We need a citizen uprising against vote buying.
At what cost do you want to sell your future, Kieran, you ask? Because whether we like it or not, elections are central features of our democracy. And when we do that, we're denying ourselves enjoying the benefit of dividends of democracy.
Exactly. The challenge is that many Nigerians are always prepared to devise means of shortchanging others, no matter the kind of regulatory, platform, put in place to check such excesses. So it's left for us, like you said, to decide on what to do. Either to maybe sell your conscience for like 3,000 naira for a vote or not.
Less. All right. Now, if you were left wondering how the people got to that level, then more shocking and amusing moments await you in this next review. The April 19th edition of the program interrogated the dramatic invasion of the National Assembly by hoodlums who took away the maize, which is the symbol of authority of the legislature.
We'd like to know your reaction when that call. What did you do as a member of the Senate who was present?
There's a process to get into the National Assembly. So for this to happen so quickly and for them to leave, there is no way in the world you can convince me there was no collusion. It's not possible. Because my guest at 9:30, Dane Walters, couldn't get into the premises. And my brother here, as a former senator, knows you just can't walk into the National Assembly. So it didn't make any sense how that could happen. And worse than that, what was the purpose? It didn't make sense what the purpose was. What did they achieve? Beyond make us look like we're a banana republic. I don't understand the logic as to why they did it, how they did it. I mean, okay, we thought what happened, but what did it accomplish?
Completely unnecessary and has cast a slur on the integrity of all of us Nigerians and has tended to desecrate the hallowed chamber of the Senate, which ought to be respected. And for me, that also is a reflection of how far some members of the Nigerian society have degenerated.
Well, for me, it's part of the impunity that has taken hold of our society in Nigeria. Because people believe they can do anything and get away with it without being punished, and then we could just sit and just think that this is what we need to do, and we go ahead to execute our plans because we are not thinking of any repercussion. It is unfortunate.
So I am amused by what they did. I am incensed, but worse than that, they've ridiculed Nigeria, the rest of the world. That is what annoys me the most. They've ridiculed Nigeria. We're not intimidated by these comedians.
And this is one instance where that message should be driven home very forcefully, that you cannot get away with this kind of impunity. There are consequences for this kind of criminal action. It is by so doing that you will impress it in the minds of Nigerians that, yes, there's a lot of freedom in a democracy, but you don't, there are extents, there are limits to which you can go, and that if you go beyond those limits, there are consequences for such actions. This has to be glaringly and forcefully demonstrated in this kind of situation.
Yes.
And among those whom you described walking into the chamber, he was with the gang, so to speak. Now, you talked about collusion. You're not ruling out collusion in all of this. What kind of collusion are you talking about?
Because it, you know what you call a comedy of errors. First of all, the intention made no sense. Like my brother here has said, it made no sense. Whatever the intention was, it defies logic. You can't achieve your objective. Whatever series of possible objectives you had in doing that is totally illogical. They took the maize, we found another one, a backup in 1 hour. You disrupted proceedings for 1 hour, we continued working. Okay? Now, Senator Agege came in with these guys. Okay? They came in together because I was right there in front, and I was like, I was the welcome committee, and they break a young lady's leg. Now, what was the objective? I don't get it. I don't get the objective. So they walked in there. The guy was suspended. He went to court. But that is not the way to resolve a legal problem. That is not the way to resolve an issue. He was asked to take the matter out of court, and he would have resolved it peacefully with the Senate President. The Senate President is a wonderful human being. He's a nice person. The institution would have worked out a settlement with him. There was no need for any of this.
But in democracy, it's all about fair views, fair representation. It's about persuasion. It's about talking to one another. That is why it is called politics. Man has evolved from that primitive society where if I fail, you offend me, and I possess the power to crush you, I crush you and move on. The essence of politics is for men to come together, to interact, to talk, without fisticuff, without any bodily harm or any injury. And that is why it is called politics. And that is why people prefer democracy all over the world. But once people have a strong view about any particular issue, they don't want a dissenting voice.
Has rules. There are rules. Even the House of Reps has its own rules. And every senator ought to comport himself in accordance with the Senate rules. So just listening to some of those comments, once you are a senator, you subscribe to the rules of the Senate. You are bound by those rules. And as they say, majority, the minority may have its say, but the majority will have its way. That is the way democracy works. So there's no other way around it. Every senator must comport himself and conduct himself and respect the rules of Senate. Every senator is given a copy on the inauguration of the Senate. So you can't say you don't know. But outsiders may not know. So the senator must respect those rules.
There are rules and regulations that guide us, and my colleague here said it adequately. And besides, you have to understand, if a senator is suspended and you walk in there with 10 thugs coming there, the only way to get you out is to have a fight, in which we didn't want to do. And policemen are not allowed into the secret chambers. So we had to have the proceedings as it happened on national television, the way it was. It's not going to happen today.
And still on politics, Ruth, within the period under review, some federal legislators sponsored a bill for the Nigeria's return to parliamentary system of government. What are their reasons? Let's watch the excerpts opinions as presented by Kingsley Sadalo and Ruth Aguele.
Basically, a presidential system of government is designed around the principle or the doctrine of separation of powers, which recognizes that even though there is no watertight compartment between the three branches of government, the executive, the judiciary, and the legislature, each one should exercise power in a particular sphere so as to ensure mutual checks and balances in the exercise of power. A parliamentary system, on the other hand, is designed around the supremacy of parliaments. And therefore, the legislature is the primary unit of governance where elections are conducted into the legislature, and the party that produces the majority in the legislature then produces the prime minister, and that is the whole basis of the prime minister being the head of government. And then you have another level. In many systems, it can be a monarchy, it can be a president that doesn't have executive power, and there are so many designs, around the world. But basically, the assumption is that where you have clear separation of powers, it is a bit difficult. The temptation to abuse power is much more reduced. And the philosophical basis of that has been there right from the 19th century. French thinkers like Montesquieu and others, have said so. Now, in the case of parliamentary, in Britain, for example, it's a natural evolution. But in many other countries that were products of British colonial, rule, they had their own design, but basically election is conducted into parliament. And it is the cabinet, the cabinet therefore is a product of parliament. And in many respects, it's accountable to the parliament. So the excess is associated with the executive. In the presidential system, it's not there in the parliamentary system. And I think that is a major attraction for so many people.
The First Republic in Nigeria collapsed because there were also equally corruption. So it is the people that are operating that system that matter. It is the structure that matter. And then if the structure is not properly in place, and then people are not the literate cannot control those structures, then the whole system, whether presidential or parliamentary, it will all boil down to the same point.
In a developing society like Nigeria, where we have very weak institutions, too much power is concentrated in the hands of the executive, and therefore is susceptible to abuse and misuse, as evidenced in the shortcomings that we are having in the operation of the presidential system of government now in Nigeria. But in the parliamentary system of government, where we have fusion of powers, that is both the executive and members of the executive also come from the parliament. One, there is easy ways and means of conflict resolution, as opposed to the present situation where we have very serious conflict between the executive and the legislature because there is clear-cut separation of powers. Because of the fact that members of the executive are also members of the legislature, it quickens decision-making process.
The presidential system of government is too expensive. Nigeria is a poor nation. We cannot afford it. The professor in Kaduna made mention of both system and the collapse of the parliamentary system. I don't think it collapsed. There was a coup. Just like we had a coup in the early 80s, they also sacked the former presidential system of government. So for me, the parliamentary system of government, we are one of the Commonwealth nations. Look at all the other Commonwealth nations. They are practicing parliamentary system of government. Even the ones that have presidential system of government is not the full-blown presidential system as you have in America. So the parliamentary, for us, the signatories to this bill, as it is today in Nigeria, is what we think will rescue Nigeria. Now everybody's talking about, what's the word there now? Restructuring. Now we're going to tinker with some things in the exclusive list and the concurrent list. So that we'll move more things from the exclusive to the concurrent. Then maybe devote power to the states. Like Honorable Mogono said, now you have a prime minister and the council of state, the council of ministers.
that are parliamentarians, they were elected like the prime minister. So that takes out having a president that will travel around the whole country campaigning. His constituency will be, for example, President Buhari. All he needs to do in the parliamentary system of government is campaign in Daura constituency. When he wins as the leader of the party, he becomes the prime minister. And then he's going to choose his ministers from amongst the elected House of Rep members. So that saves all the aides and all to avoid duplicating or repeating what my colleague has said. Then the presidency is a total duplication, complete duplication, which we cannot afford it, we don't need it.
Let me commend the National Assembly for at least kickstarting the debate around the change they want to see in terms of how Nigeria is structured and governed. These are some of the mistakes we always commit in Nigeria. For instance, during the military, they thought by changing the name of the electoral empire, they could do away with the issues of rigging and what have you. What has come out clearly all over the world is as people continue to progress in their practices, certain fundamental questions confront how governance is conducted. And that equally call to question the existing structure. But again, as my colleagues in the academia rightly stated, it is not about the structure. It is about the attitude of those that are practicing a given system of government. Don't forget the fact that presidential system of government is being practiced elsewhere in the world, and it is working. The question we should be asking is, why did we jettison parliamentary system of government in the first place? What were the reasons? What are the lessons learned from that? And why did we adopt presidential system of government? And if we have the cause to change, why do we want to change? All the reasons that have been given by the honorable members that are seated here, there are genuine reasons, there are things that we needed to ponder about. But it is not, as I said, let me repeat, it is not about the structure. It is about those that are managing the structure. It is, let me say this with due respect to everybody that is talking about this issue. It is the self-seeking attitude of almost all Nigerians that are called elite.
Well, Karian, the cost of running presidential system of government was the main, subject, for advocating for parliamentary system of government. Now, a lot of people will say, yes, it's costly, but again, the interests of the citizens must come first.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the guests, did say that, the parliamentary system did not collapse. It was just part of the restructuring of the early 70s that brought about a presidential system of government. And Shagari, we just discussed a short while ago, was the first executive president under that system, yes. Right? And what the protagonists are actually saying is the fact that, one, not just that it's expensive to run, but it also makes it difficult, for regions to develop, based on the resources inherent, on their land. Because they said that this will bring a healthy competition, politically, economically, and otherwise. And by so doing, you see the entire country, develop. So these are part of what they're
and one of their advantage is the fact that it will help to, passage of economic bills will pass easily because of the fusion of power that exactly. It embodies. Well, we'll keep looking at it. But the next edition of the program for review touches the bedrock of societal development, which I believe everybody's keen about. Now, I'm talking about education anyway. Precisely on the 5th of November 2018, Good Morning Nigeria discussed 70 years of university education in Nigeria. Now, the guests, which include university administrators in both public and private institutions, gave the assessment of the state of education at that level.
Well, in terms of quality, I think, the general opinion, the general narrative is that the good old days, are gone. And what we have is universities that, just trying to cope. And people, support this kind of assertion by looking at, the global ranking of universities. In spite of this, poor assessment of Nigeria, the facilities, the lecturers, and so on, and the student intake,
I also think that when Nigerian students actually go out of this country, to compete with students outside, they also excel. So it's now a question of which one do we take? Is it the impressionistic assessment of the general public? Do we take also the metric assessment or ranking of the universities and so on and so forth?
70 years on, what is the experience with university education in Nigeria?
Thank you very much. I think it's a very sad story. We have seen it all in a lifetime, growing from those glorious days, then before our very own eyes, the decay, and then some semblance of hope coming periodically and then dashed off, such that we are now left in a certain wilderness whereby everybody is concerned that the way we are going, we can't keep on going like this, but where else do we go? How do we go? And this has followed the same trajectory for many of Nigerian developmental issues. Name it agriculture, name it mining. All we are relying on past glories that we have seen. What it means for me is that our founding fathers have actually laid a good foundation for us, which disappointedly we failed our future generation to actually sustain it, and then of course even think better than them going forward. For us in the university, many things we try to do in order to redirect certain things. People are worried that this has not been the way. But I say, look, even the founding fathers, if they are alive today, they would do it differently, because the world keeps changing, and we fail to respond to the changes in the world. And this has actually caught up with us when we have many, many missed opportunities in the past, when we should have used our God-given endowment to better our systems, whether it's education, health, industry, or what have you. So you will see that, like my brother here said, initially, in our time when we were undergraduate in the university, the inflow of foreign faculties was much. Inflow of foreign students in Nigeria was much. In fact, I studied in a department that had more foreign lecturers than Nigerians at my time. And many of us have gone through that system. Then we reached a time when the whole thing was reversed. They all left, and even we have left also the system out. There was a massive exodus out of the Nigerian system, and that thing we have never recovered. Because what follows that time was that people lost hope in the system. And somehow the stakeholders, the government, the parents, the student, everybody also went haywire. We were unable to have a very strategic thinking in this country. How, looking back and what we are in now, how do we really create things that will be better for us going into the future? I think this is what faces us today.
The fortune of the Nigerian university system is tied to the fortune of the country itself. I mean, our former Vice Chancellor, Professor Moni Yadewoye, who is a notable historian, alluded to this 20 years ago. I mean, we are talking of public universities. So whatever affects the country almost immediately impacts on the Nigerian university system, insofar as we are funded by the federal government. Like, you look at it, maybe since December 2015, all federal universities in Nigeria have been having issues with the payment of their personnel costs. And that was because of the crash in the price of crude oil, which is the main source of foreign exchange earnings for the federal government. So you can already, every politics is definitely involved. And at times when people talk of the former Vice Chancellor of University of Abuja said a short while ago that the Nigerian universities are not well ranked. I mean, to me, it's a joke taken too far. And you cannot build something on nothing. I mean, when you look at what happens in other climes, I know Ibrahim Garba, the Bishop of ABU, did this PhD at Imperial College. And he knows the set of funding there. So we are just scratching the problem on the surface. And you find out that at the end of the politics is superior to economics. So it's a political decision. The issue of sustainable financing is really very critical. And so there are so many models. I mean, whether you want to go to the social democratic model, like in Germany and Denmark, where university education is free, to the effect that government picks up the bill. Or you go to America, where students have to take loans to fund them. So the truth of the matter is, if it costs you 1 million naira to train a student of economics in a year, So government has to decide whether it's in the position to provide that 1 million naira per student to the benefiting university or the department. And if government cannot fund the level of resources to that level, then there's a gap. Other students have to take loan, and of course you don't want a system in which you monetize so much that the children of the masses will not be able to afford university education. So it will be inequitable. So we have to then decide what we want. Because the university education in Nigeria, is probably like, is more or less mediocre. And when you say we are not well ranked, if you look at electricity generation in Nigeria, I'm sure as we speak, we don't generate up to 10,000 megawatts in the country, in spite of all the efforts by His Excellency Governor Fashola as the Honorable Minister. But South Africa, with a population less than that of Southwestern Nigeria, generates like 50,000 megawatts. So you cannot take the university system out of the entire ecosystem. That is the truth. Because you have your laboratories, power supply has to be available 24 hours. But most of the time we crucify the Nigerian university system. And to me, I don't even believe the standard is dropping. The question, who sets the standard? I know Ibrahim Gaba is a product of ABU, just like I am a product of University of Ibadan. But we went abroad and we still excelled. So it will not be fair to just be rubbing it down on the university system that we are this, we are that. But of course, we cannot build something on nothing. This input, process, and output. The quality of the input, I can speak for the University of Ibadan. The quality of our students is very good, very outstanding. We attract the best students from Nigeria, indeed from the West African coast. We try our best to teach them. Then they go out. But if you need 10 microscopes to teach students in geology and you have only 2, then there is a gap. Or your students need to go for field work for 3 months. You can only afford that they are going to the field work for 1 month because of the limited resources. What do you do? So these are the challenges. And we cannot run away from the issue of financing. And we talk of ranking of universities. What does it take to have a world-class university? It's not rocket science. 3 things. You need a high concentration of talents, whether it's the staff or the students. Like I told you, the students at the University of Ibadan, they are among the best in the world. And one can say that one proudly. Then, even if you have the students and the staff, then you have to support them. Some of the students cannot even feed 3 times a day. They say 001 or 100. So you have to be concerned. Now we talk of the staff. I know for a fact that the staff of the University of Ibadan, I overwork them, then I underpay them at the same time. So how do I expect the best from them? So you have to support your staff and students heavily. Then you leave them to govern themselves in terms of university autonomy, academic freedom. In other clients, people are talking of, just like Professor Yakubu alluded to, you are talking of attracting international students and faculty. But in Nigeria, you're talking of federal character. When our colleagues in South Africa, we're talking of international character. We are talking of federal character.
Well, as far as I can tell, the past was a little better than what I see now. I attended the University of Nigeria in Nsukka 85 to 89. And I know today that what we had then was much better than what I see today. It was a time when lecturers took their work seriously. You didn't hear about cultism, you didn't hear about sorting, you didn't hear about a lecturer trying to harass a student sexually. You had the feeling that your lecturers were teachers. They knew their work and they wouldn't joke with their work. And we respected them because of that. And there was an atmosphere of calmness on campus. You didn't hear about students running around because some people were chasing them. And you didn't hear so much about students missing their lecture. It was a different situation. The infrastructure we had then wasn't actually much better than what we have now. I still remember my department, the English department then, and what it is today. Of course, you had the old building, the fabricated building and all that, but lectures were going on. University is about the quality of teachers. It's about the dedication of teachers. It's about students who have made up their mind to pursue knowledge. Not so much about buildings, not so much about beauty, environment. Remember, that in the past, great scholars like Socrates, Plato, Aristotle, they taught under the trees and all that, and they were able to have excellent students. But today we are emphasizing so much building that looks like a hotel and all that without actually stressing the lecturers, the professors, and those who actually deliver knowledge. It was a different time because of the quality of the lecturers who had and that dedication to duty. That is what is failing today. Also, on the part of students, they knew they had come to read, they had come to study, and they wouldn't miss their lectures. And you wouldn't hear about cultism and all sorts of things that we hear today. So I think from this perspective of lecturers, students, and the atmosphere on campus, the past was much better than what we have today.
Well, when was the point of departure from what it used to be to what it is now? Now, from education, we'll move to growth. When the news broke that Nigeria's population is about 198 million, it caught our attention, and hence the discussion titled Population Explosion in Nigeria. Kingsley Osadelo and Femi Okeo anchored that edition of the program.
Currently, our population is about between 198 200 million, as you have said, which is very huge. People will compare, and you were comparing India, China, and America. But if you look at it, if you put Nigeria geographically inside America, you will discover that it's just about 1 or 2 states, or maybe 3 states that it will occupy. So even if comparing them, even with the same resources and all other things, you will discover that if we are to be on the same standard, if Nigeria, if America should have 300 million population, then Nigeria shouldn't go beyond 50 by now. Even with the same resources, with the same technology, with the same thing for us to increase and have the same set of standard of living. Let's assume we have the same technology. That is when we are comparing on this note, because people used to compare. Some have 1 billion and all other things. You must compare their resources. You must compare resources including land, technology, and all other things. But the major problem I would just say we should look at in terms of the danger, it's not about the population alone, but the rate of increase of the population. That should be the main concern for us. India, China, America are not growing at the rate we are growing. They are far, far growing lesser than we are. And that is why we are saying by 2050, we overtake so many of them. Because if we are going at this rate of about 3.2%, fertility rate about 5.5, that is an average of 5.5 children per a woman in this life birth period, is very great compared with those that have what we call replacement level, like Britain, America, and all other things that has maybe about 2 or 2 point something per woman. So if we are going at this rate, the problem is definitely there.
For us, we feel that we're in a demographic crisis already. And then if you look at why demographers will say you're in a crisis, there are 3 key things. One is you have a very youthful population. 45% of our population is below the age of 15. 60% of our population is below the age of 30. That's a very young population, and it's called dependent population. And then the second one, if you have high rate of immigration from your country to other countries, if you look at skilled labor immigration, you wouldn't so complain because $27 billion come into this country from diaspora and economy. But the one that is worrying is immigration of non-skilled people. I remember in 2006, I was in Norway on the invitation of the Norwegian government when they were trying to craft their reproductive health policy for Africa. One of the key things the International Development Minister asked me, Dr. Oche, how come every single day 13 commercial sex workers come into their country from Nigeria? 14% of all the people who cross the tempestuous sea of the Mediterranean to seek for greener pastures in Europe, we hear is about are Nigerians. We were shouting, nobody listened, until recently we saw plane loads of Nigerians being brought back from Libya. Then the third one is when nationals are killing nationals. Remember, it started in 2004, OPC in the southwest, militancy in the Niger Delta. Some of us were shouting, nobody listened. Then came kidnapping in the southeast. We are shouting, I'm from the southeast. For almost 4 years, I didn't go home. Because once you put up a amount of this and you want to build a house, they'll come for you. We were shouting, nobody listened. Then came the religious crisis on the plateau. I remember one gentleman, a senator, then called me when they said, Dr. Oje, are you a prophet of doom? Because I went around the country and I was talking about these issues. I said, I'm not. Just look at, use societal imperatives. You can make some deductive reasoning and know what's going to happen next. And I said, more will come. Came Boko Haram in the northeast. We were still talking about Boko Haram. Now we have the so-called herdsmen killings.
and Nigerians are just targeting on herdsmen. It's not herdsmen killing. This is just a symptom. The main reason is that we are overpopulated, like he correctly said. So we need to address it.
A nation of 180 million people undertaking developmental interventions in a blinded manner without carefully using the demographic figures and the necessary statistics to plan for developmental intervention across every sector of the economy, we are only allowing for disaster to happen. Every single mouse that is born in Nigeria require a given quantity of calorie of food to survive, require a minimum number of liters of water to use per day, require access to health facility, require access to education, require certain amount of megawatt of electricity to use. And these are economic imperatives, and they don't just happen. Government at all levels have to plan for this to happen. And unfortunately, we have abandoned the culture of planning, and that is why we are seeing what we are seeing today. The competition for economic resources arising from expanded population will continue. The so-called crisis, whether it is ethnic or whether it is religious, is a manifestation of a deep-rooted problem arising from an expanding population that is not properly planned for and without requisite national planning culture to be able to provide adequate social services, but importantly, economic opportunities for a rising population to be productively engaged and therefore dissuade its mind from engaging in social biases and fabricated ethnic and religious crises. And I think if we understand the issues from this perspective, I think it will be important for us, to all of us, but importantly, as some of my colleagues have said, for the subnational entities, states and local governments to partner with the federal government towards working as a team so that we can be able to know exactly what is the requirement per our population in terms of access to health, how many doctors do we need per every ratio of population, how many additional schools do we require to build, what is the teacher-pupil ratio, how many additional roads do we require, what is the quantity of water required by 190 million population, what is the adequate food calorie and its combination to facilitate healthier living that is required, what is the existing population density in our country, what is the level of urbanization, what is the rate of urbanization expansion, what is the concomitant additional developmental resources required for an expanding population, but importantly for the growing urbanization which is projected to reach around 70% by the year 2050. So I think it is important we see this problem as a national problem that is not just the responsibility of the federal government, but the responsibility of every Nigerian. Once we are able to identify what are the key problems and working as a team, then we can be able to sit down and fashion enduring strategies for us to go back. But the most important thing is for us to be able to know every single aspect of the demographic characteristics, what it entails in terms of problems, and what are the opportunities associated with it, and then working as a team to exploit the opportunities and to mitigate the problems.
We want a population structure where the dependency ratio is better, where there are fewer dependents, and then the life will improve. And that is what we talk about demographic dividend. It only happens when the working age is almost as equal or slightly bigger than the dependent. And then they are able to take and work and save, and life improve, and the whole country get out of poverty. It can happen if a few people are working for a large amount of people. So what do we do in this structure? What the United Nations will recommend is voluntary family planning. People have the right to decide freely and responsibly the number and spacing of children they want. If this happens, almost 30% of Nigerians who want really not to have children, they continue to have, simply because they don't have access to family planning.
Well, we're faced with a big challenge, if you ask me. From 1960, when we were 45.1 million to almost 200 million. Investing in human capital is one way to go, and it will be to advantage, especially if we have a productive population. Let's go on this break. We'll be back.
You in the air-conditioned office with the itchy throat. Strepsils. Girl in the spotlight with the raspy throat. Strepsils. You in the pollution. Yes, you. Dry throat. Strepsils. Hello in the downpour with the scratchy throat. Take Strepsils. Strepsils, with its soothing medicinal ingredients, will heal the harm done to your throat from external factors. Strepsils. Strepsils. Strepsils, for a dry, itchy, raspy, scratchy throat.
Don't you people sell imported materials here? As beautiful as the shop is.
Auntie, buying foreign goods does not help our economy. Neither does it boost local production. And the good thing is Nigerian-made products are high quality. And to make Nigeria great again, that is why I only sell made in Nigeria products. Because change begins with me.
Convinced. Change begins with me too. Change begins with me.
This message is brought to you by the National Orientation Agency in conjunction with the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Nigerians. Suicide bombers are not spirits. They are not ghosts. They are human beings like you and me. They live amongst us. They are your neighbors. They are your friends today, but terrorists tomorrow. So you must know your neighbor now. Security begins with you and me. Know your neighbor. Be vigilant. Be security conscious. Report suspicious persons, objects and movements to the police and other security agencies. The security of our nation is a duty for you and me.
If you see something, say something. Nigeria unite against terrorism. This message is brought to you by the Federal Ministry of Information and Culture.
Welcome back. Now, it is a well-known fact that the anti-corruption crusade is one of the three cardinal agenda of the Buhari administration since its inception. And so Good Morning Nigeria focused on it, captioned Anti-Corruption War 3 years on. Kinsley and Kirian were the presenters.
What has been the scorecard with regard to the anti-corruption war? Let's begin with the ICPC and then go over to the EFCC. The acting chair of the ICPC.
Okay. Thank you very much. Actually, from 2015 to date, a lot of achievements, have been recorded in the fight against corruption in Nigeria. As we observed from the background information, a number of convictions were recorded, and even wealth stolen and taken abroad are being repatriated back to Nigeria. Another thing which most people don't really consider is the preventive component of the fight, which ICPC is doing. This is to do with things like corruption risk assessment, system study of agencies to identify corruption vulnerabilities within the systems and to plug leakages. So these are some of the things, I mean, we have done over the years, and as a result, I mean, corruption has reduced to the barest minimum.
You, as well, Nigerians know that one of the charges against the anti-corruption war has always been that we've not had very high-profile people convicted, sent off to jail. That has happened. In this year we had 2 former governors, 7 senators sent to prison. They are in prison as we speak. Now that has quietened that aspect of the charge against the fight against corruption, and then of course we have several other convictions from the EFCC and the ICPC, of course, and just as your background report reviewed, there's been a lot of repatriation of stolen funds coming in from outside of the country. And those that are in the country, we have secured and are securing on a daily basis. Orders, temporary and final for future orders for those assets that are stolen. Because you know that the greatest weapon that you have against corruption is taking that benefit from the person. If you take it, then the person will not have any foundation to lean on. You won't have any resource to fight against the fight against corruption. So that is what we are doing, and we have seized several assets on order of court: houses, ships, tankers, but laden with fuel, estate, land, exotic vehicles, just name it. These are things that people invest their stolen wealth in, and the commission has, taken all of those things back, when the court gives us the mandate to so do. And then, of course, I must mention that one of the things we have also done, the anti-corruption agencies, has been to raise the consciousness of Nigerians. It is so high now that you can't talk about corruption hiding. There's no hiding place for the corrupt. Everything is now in the open. People are asking questions. People are demanding answers. And if the agencies have not achieved anything, that is one very, very potent achievement of the anti-corruption agencies.
The hallmark of anti-corruption fight is, there are 2 prongs in my opinion. The first one is the punitive measure, so that people will know the consequence of looting the funds belonging to the public. And then the second one, which is the recoveries of the looted funds. You must, in the fight, approach it from these 2 prongs to be able to have what you can call success in a whole. And if you apply that to the activities of EFCC over the last 3 years, I think they have done creditably well. Especially with the recent conviction, as was highlighted by ex-governors who incidentally happen to be members of the same political party with the ruling government. So to me, that is a plus. Then for the recoveries, even though a larger part of what we have recovered over the years are what we call the non-conviction-based recoveries. Usually there are not so much of contention in that regard, because people are not turning up to identify the property to own the property. On conviction-based recovery, there's a lot that needs to be done by the commission, by the courts, and by the public, because it's a fight belonging to every one of us as a country. And EFCC, too, quite frankly, is trying its best lately to engage the public, because that's the opinion we've always had, that you don't make it a fight of an institution against politicians, and then the masses become spectators. You give them the ownership of the fight. So they provide intelligence, they provide information, and they will participate in this fight in order to be able to see success.
Every administration has had one form of fight against corruption or the other. But I think the one that has made the most impact is the one that is currently happening now. We cannot deny the fact that there have been convictions, there have been recoveries, and so on. Although, of course, there are challenges, like in any other situation. I believe that it is business unusual in the sense that for once the government appears, and I'm using appears very carefully, the government appears to have the political will to do what they should do. But like the last speaker said, the whole thing is that there's a problem of perception. There's a problem of involvement, with the public.
As it is today, we have a total number of about 603 convictions. And if this year alone, we are talking about 242 convictions as at 30th November, which is really unprecedented. Or is it in terms of recoveries? About 500 billion naira has been recovered since the advent of this administration, which is unprecedented. Again, in terms of international cooperation, because the war against corruption is not just local, it's an international. It has an international character. You can see that for the first time, a number of international agreements have been signed under Magu's watch. Increased collaboration with the FBI is taking place under Magu's watch. Increased collaboration with the Metropolitan Police, UK, is taking place under Magu's watch. Increased collaboration with the Department of Justice is taking place. And you can see, if you read the papers today, you find out that Dubai, which used to be the attractive center for looters, is no longer there because the EFCC has closed the gap owing to the international agreement signed with United Arab Emirates. You can see that now looters are running to Johannesburg, they are running to Morocco, they are running to Ghana because they no longer find Dubai very attractive, and EFCC is closing in on them. And again, it's very important, the leadership of EFCC, we are talking of anti-corruption, ICPC is also doing its own part, but clearly EFCC is driving the war. And this is because of the quality of the leadership, personally, of EFCC. And it is really, really very sad that in spite of the achievements of the current leadership of EFCC under Magu's watch, such a character has not been confirmed.
What requires to be done is for them to improve on their performance, to reduce the perception which Daniel highlighted, that the fight is one-sided. I think that is an area that they should do something more effort should be put toward that direction. For instance, what happened in Kano, I expected EFCC to move in. Yes, the governor has immunity to get the officers or the other people involved, take their statements, make discreet investigation, and keep the file. When the governor leaves office, then you can interrogate him and conclude investigation. But to be indifferent or to be aloof when the whole thing is in the social media, for me, is not, that is what people use against EFCC. That's that. So, but so far, so good. I will give EFCC 65% credit in the fight against corruption.
All right, now, the judicial arm of government has come under serious criticisms in recent years, which prompted the leadership of the third arm of government to intensify reforms in this sector for effective dispensation of justice, being the last hope of the common man. NTA's flagship program, in line with its proactive posture, assembled some legal luminaries to speak on the journey so far. The program, which was transmitted on the 11th of June 2018, was titled Administration of Justice in Nigeria.
Judiciary has been faring very well, and I say this without fear of any contradiction. This is so because when you look at the odds and the background on which the Nigerian judiciary has been operating, you are bound to give more than just a pass mark to the judiciary. It's been doing very well in the area of justice delivery, with promptitude, as I said, taking into consideration a lot of the challenges bedeviling justice dispensation in Nigeria.
The judges are determined, ever willing to move forward, particularly even against looking at the pressure on the part of the National Judicial Council, which I'm a member, pressurizing judges to submit quarterly returns of cases, failure of which you are penalized, you are queried, you are subjected to all forms of disciplinary sanctions for non-delivery of the requisite number of cases on quarterly basis. I don't think there's any other segment of the public sector that truly insists in penalizing its workforce as the judiciary for non-performance. You also look at the issue of funding, which is very crucial, is part of the challenges. And within the realm of criminal administration and justice delivery, you find a lot of challenges because there's this saying outside, I'll literally translate it into English: no matter how anxious Friday is to come, it must allow Thursday to pass by. All right? Meaning that no matter how anxious and enthusiastic a judge is in handling a matter, at least he must wait for the prosecution to present the cases. In the absence of that, there's nothing he can do. So that is part of the challenges. The prosecutors too, they can tell you their own challenges, so the investigators, and unless something is done, will continue to have these excruciating circumstances that militate against smooth deliberation of justice. Broadly, you can classify the challenges from the perspective of both institutional and systemic, looking at other constitutional loopholes, statutory provisions, etc. And then the capacity of the institutions too, and then looking at attitudinal factor, both on the part of the judiciary in some cases and within the realm of the prosecutors.
And if you look at the sustenance of democracy within the last 19 years, if not for the judiciary, probably the country would not be what we are today. Judges have taken very bold steps to deliver judgments at times, well, without fear of favor. You don't fear what happens to you, then you have to do the work the way it should be done. If you look at all, and look at the three arms of government, the judiciary, like I said, is the only arm of government that disciplines its own members. I stand to be corrected that any of the other two arms can discipline their members the way we discipline our members. For judges to sit over panels or investigation of a fellow judge is not, but yet the council ensures that this must be done. Now, the judiciary is facing a lot of problems. The public only looks at the output. They are not looking at the input. Garbage in, garbage out. If the judiciary is not well funded until this present year, that there is a little bit of improvement in the funding from 70 billion to 100 billion, you see that for the previous years, only a few years that the judiciary was funded the way it should, and even now, the judiciary is not yet being funded the way it should be funded. Let me tell you, we have 180 people, they say, in Nigeria. Because I don't have the statistics, I say they say we have 1,200 judicial officers, starting from the Supreme Court to the Customary Court of Appeal. We have about 1,200 judges. Now, if a judge is given 500 cases in his docket, tell me, in a year, no matter how hard working he is, assuming he's able to do in a quarter, he's able to do 20, which is very difficult, times 4. It means that he's going to do 80. If he's able to dispense justice in 80 cases out of 500 or 300, before he finishes this 80, maybe 200 has been assigned to him. We have very, very short enrollment in the judiciary.
So give and take. The public perception of the judiciary may not have been the best
in the last couple of years. But I believe that the judiciary has stabilized in the last 2 years or thereabout considerably well, and efforts being made to make sure that the public perception changes for good. And of course, given the judicial integrity that we can now see clearly, I believe that the public perception certainly has changed considerably, and that we're going to see a judiciary in the next couple of months going forward that certainly will rank clearly as one of the best in Africa, if not in the world.
No doubt the judicial arm of the government is tasked with the responsibility of equity, fairness and justice. We have some tweets coming in. Let's take it before we continue. This one is from Mike Anyako. We greatly thank God for the year 2018 that is coming to an end today. The year has been full of challenges in our country. As we are entering a new year 2019, we enjoin all stakeholders to embrace peace, unity and mutual respect to one another, irrespective of the inclinations.
Now, from Mike Anyako, once more, just one of our regulars, he says, during the year, we witnessed a very dangerous precedent in our electoral process. See and by. This will lead to election of unpopular candidates in elections. As we are entering an election year 2019, Nigerians must rise against this bad attitude. People's votes must count.
And from Festus Akimboyewa, one of our regulars, there's no doubt that NTA-GMN raised discussion, awareness on important issues in 2018. I would like more discussion on mental health and drug addiction in 2019. Happy New Year in advance. Happy New Year to you too, Festus. Thank you for that.
All right, from Festus to Comrade Alaji Ngala. He just says a parliamentary system of government has only worked in developed nations. I beg to disagree with that, Ruth. All right, back to you, Ruth.
All right, let's move on now. The effects of fake news have started to impact negatively on the nation, especially now that the country is preparing for general elections. And so the Minister of Information and Culture, Alhaji Lai Mohammed, is spearheading a campaign against fake news in the country. Good Morning Nigeria also held an edition on the 13th of July 2018 under the heading, Combating Dangers of Fake News. Kieran and Kinsley presented that edition.
What do you intend to achieve with this?
I think the essence of our launching the campaign against fake news are twofold. One is to sensitize Nigerians to the dangers posed by fake news. It threatens not just peace and security of a nation, it also threatens the very corporate existence of a nation. In particular, a country like Nigeria, which is multi-ethnic, multi-religious, fake news laced with hate speeches is a time bomb. Secondly, we launched the campaign to sensitize Nigerians that each and every one of us can play a role in stemming the rise of fake news. Those are the main reasons why we felt that we must launch this campaign. But I think more importantly is the fact that in 2017 we did draw attention to the phenomenon. We were so concerned and so worried, even by 2017, that we dedicated an entire National Council on Information meeting in Jos Plateau State to examine fake news and hate speeches, because we saw that it was already, people were exploiting our national fault lines and using incendiary issues such as religion and ethnicity to inflame passion. But like you said in your introduction, fake news is a global issue. It's not just in Nigeria. But we are more concerned in Nigeria because of the potential it has to actually not just threaten, peace and security, but also our corporate existence.
All right, let's back up a bit to the NCI, that is the National Council on Information. Could you recall some of the resolutions that were reached at the council with regard specifically to fake news and how to deal with it?
I remember in particular that we advised all our members, because the National Council on Information, is made up of commissioners of information in every state, and also leading and also federal parastatals such as the NTA, FRCN, News Agency of Nigeria, and the like. And we said two things. One, please ensure that you can vouch for the credibility of any information before you start publishing it. Two, don't share any information whose credibility you cannot vouch for. What we found out is that, yes, it is true that the major purveyor of fake news in the world today is probably the social media. But gradually it is also permeating into the traditional media. And this is, I think, what worries us even more. Of course, the danger of social media is that anybody today with a telephone and internet access can make up a story, make up pictures, and it can go viral in a matter of minutes. But then, when also the traditional media now begins to become a purveyor of fake news, it becomes more dangerous to society. And it's even become more dangerous even to the media itself. Because the moment the media loses credibility, then society is in trouble. And I must say that the examples of fake news in recent times in Nigeria is very worrisome. I think it was just about a week or so ago, a national newspaper, Frontline, page one story was that a federal high court had directed that the National Assembly should commence impeachment proceedings against Mr. President. Whereas in truth, all that the court ordered was it gave leave and permission for the plaintiff to commence to bring an application, which is completely different. Or you take a situation like in 2017, I believe, when there was a news that went viral that 5 students of College of Education in Gidanwaya in southern Kaduna were killed by herdsmen, only to be found that these stories were fake. And before they were found to be fake, a lot of communal havoc had been done.
Well, the issue of fake news is apparently a result of the social media. But the journalism profession seems to have been invaded by every other person who has access to a telephone or the internet could, cook up stories and start sharing on different platforms in the social media. That's very terrible, and of course, if it is not curtailed, it's going to really tear this country apart. As the minister rightly said, they said it's a time bomb.
And he said it's one of the biggest prank that can, consume the world.
Exactly.
Where's professional ethics in the profession, you ask?
Right. Now, security, as we know, is significant to whatever one intends to venture into. And as Nigeria is preparing for general elections come 2019, the issue of election security is key to the success of the exercise. This prompted the NTA's Good Morning Nigeria to dedicate an edition on election security management. The program was discussed 2 weeks ago.
The police was highly sensitized, particularly with the historical perspective. And through these same workshops that we are talking about and the lectures that I earlier mentioned, we were able to prepare ourselves and say no to it. Even though we knew we were facing somebody representing the party in power, we said no to it. We stood our ground. You could see how the INEC chairman was making a telephone call. He called me, and I told him he had nothing to worry because we had prior information of what the senior officer of the ruling party was trying to do. And we had made all necessary arrangements because I directed that all roads leading into the coalition center, the International Conference Center then, be blocked. And that was why he stood alone and made his protest alone. All those he was expecting to also get up and protest along with him and cause chaos in the place were not there because we had blocked them.
So if citizens recognize that election is a recruitment process, they will not sell their vote, they will not do things that will undermine their own power, that will undermine their own interests. But of course, politicians are very smart. They indeed manipulate the citizens, ensure that they do not properly understand the nature of politics and the strength of politics. And in the context, they are able to continue to enslave the people rather than being servants of the people. It requires a lot of enlightenment, voter education, and a lot of citizens themselves saying enough is enough. We are not going to be made slave to people who indeed we have recruited to office to work for us. So it's a long-term process. Unfortunately, politicians use emotionally laden affinities, religion, ethnicity. These are emotionally laden affinities that for an average person who wants to throw them in the open, they're no longer rational. And these are the things that people have used cleverly by politicians to divide our people and to incite violence. Even when the violence is not that the people are paid for it, they simply say, these people have cheated us for long.
If you recall, after the 2011 election, there was no election that happened without involvement of politicians, whereby the leaders of the political parties, the chairmen of the political parties involved, are brought before the Commissioner of Police or before the Assistant Inspector General of Police, that particular zone, to come together and discuss how to ensure very peaceful election. And of course, the Commissioner of Police, having done that, they made them to sign undertaking to maintain good behavior and to control the excesses of their party members before, during, and after the elections. So this, in a long way, has made sure that the politicians are involved in this aspect of mitigating violence. And also, we should not look at stopping violence only in terms of seminar, and there are other issues that are also involved. The welfare of the police officers in every polling unit must be taken care of. Because if we don't do that, there's likelihood that some politicians will come and give them either meal in the afternoon or induce them. Then that will cause them not to be apolitical. So as much as it's practicable now, we are enjoying, and I know the present IG must have talked to his AIGs and the DIGs to take it down to other senior officers that immediately election starts, money should be disbursed to the men who are supposed to conduct this election. A situation whereby after the election, some of these police officers who are guarding the polling unit are not being given their allowances may not be good for peaceful conduct of the election. It's another avenue for creating chaos.
That's our review at this time, but let's get updates from the foreign scene.
In reaction to the United Nations call for a probe into death of protesters, the Sudanese president Umar al-Bashir has ordered the police to reduce the force used against anti-government demonstrators. This is coming in a meeting with top police officers in Khartoum, instructing them to refrain from using excessive force against protesters. The government says at least 19 people have died during the protest, which has spread across the country since December 19. But the rights group Amnesty International says 37 deaths have been recorded. Now, elsewhere, the United Kingdom and France are to step up joint patrols and increase surveillance to tackle a rise in the number of migrants trying to reach Britain in small boats. This is coming after 6 more Iranian men were found on the beach near Dover on Sunday morning. The National Crime Agency said French authorities prevented a further attempt to cross the channel on Saturday night. As it stands, the two countries have agreed to enhance action plan to be put in place in the coming week.
Thank you, Yemi there. And that's it on Good Morning Nigeria for the year 2018. Looking forward to 2019, Kieran. Yeah. And from me, I'm saying a very big Happy New Year. I am Ruth Aguele.
We believe that 2019 will be a better year. I am Kieran Umayo. Thank you for watching Good Morning Nigeria for a whole 2018. Do same again in 2019. It's good morning and have a great day.